Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Gaming News Canada show. As usual, I'm your host, Steve McAllister. In March 2023, about 18 months ago now, we sat down at a restaurant in downtown New York City with three young men. One who published his master's thesis on a machine learning algorithm that outperformed NBA betting markets, one who founded his first business venture before his bar mitzvah, and the other who was a theater, film, and TV school graduate. The three UCLA buddies had parlayed their experiences into a startup in the business of sports betting. Today, WagerWire is going very strong in the worlds of wagering, daily fantasy sports, and social media content. To discuss their continuing journey, we're very pleased to bring on the Gaming News Canada show, the company's founding three amigos, Zach Doctor, Guy Dotan, and Travis Geiger. Hey, boys, it's really great to get together with the three of you once again.
Thank you. Yeah,
for having us.
That was one of the better intros we've ever had. I appreciated that.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I worked hard on that because I didn't want you guys chirping me. So it's three against one. So we had to do our due diligence to get ready for this podcast. Maybe Zach, we'll start with you. Like, we're recording this interview on the day before the start of the NFL regular season, and you know, this is a season in which the American Gaming Association predicts is going to attract an unprecedented $35 billion in legal sports betting. I'll start with you, Zach. I mean, what's life like in the WagerWire world about 32 hours before the Chiefs and Browns get going?
Yeah, well, I saw those numbers too. I mean, I think we're gearing up for just a monster season. Obviously, it's been busy for us. A lot of good stuff cooking though on WagerWire that we'll get into as we get into it today. But we've been really developing out different products, growing our audience, growing our user base, really getting the marketplace activity going. Got trading turned on in our WagerWire app recently, so this is going to be the first football season where we're really cranking at full steam, and super excited for it.
Hey, Guy, thinking you as the tech guru, you're probably the busiest of the trio right now. Is that a correct statement?
Am I the busiest of the trio right now?
Yeah.
I mean, if everybody's firing at 100%, like, I don't know if that's true. Yeah. I'm both first place and last place for busiest at 100% busy all the time.
You're far too modest. We need to get you a PR guy.
Hey, we keep telling them.
Hey, when I talked to you guys back in 2023, I think I wrote in the newsletter 4 or 5 weeks later. The four of us have been together at the next conference in New York, and you know, back then we talked about WagerWire being a one-stop destination for tracking, selling, and buying bets. And Travis, it seems since then, like you guys, it's a runaway train. You, as I mentioned before we hit the record button, the company has its fingers in a lot of different pies. When you sit here today, like when people ask you what's WagerWire, what's your response?
I think WagerWire is the future, right? It finally gets sports betting up to par with every other consumer vertical. It's so weird and bizarre to us that a bet is the one thing that you can buy that you can't turn around and resell. You can do it with baseball cards. You can do it with sneakers. You can do it with your car. We say, what if you bought a car and you could only sell it back to the dealership, only if they wanted it, and only for the price that they were willing to pay for it? That's what cash out is, right? And we are the evolution of that, right? You can think of us like a peer-to-peer cash out, and we think more people are going to be cashing out than ever before. Because right now, cash out is negative EV on the PR side for a casino because they're going to give you a lowball offer. They like it. We say, keep your margins and add WagerWire. But the narrative right now is totally broken. It's, I got one leg left on my parlay, and the casino is trying to screw me. And then everyone in the comments is just dumping on the offer. One of the things we did very early that Guy's team built was put out a free bet value calculator that takes a little bit of the black box away from what your cash out offer is. So you can see what the replacement value of your bet is. You can also put in the cash out offer, find what percentage of full value that is. That's wagerwire.com/calculator. You can also graph bets. And so when you ask us what WagerWire is, I think it does become your homepage for betting because you'll have access to primary markets, you'll have access to secondary markets. But really, we have a really unique relationship with our players because we're one of the few betting companies that doesn't profit off of their losses. We would prefer that they win. So when they come to us, we're a trusted source of telling them where they can sign up, where they can get bonuses. But then once they start their journey, how they can see how much they've won, how much they've lost, their record, what their friends are betting on. Helping people become a better bettor makes for a healthier ecosystem, and it makes us an indisposable part of our players' lives.
Hey Zach, for someone like me who's not real betting savvy, if I'm sitting down watching Browns and Chiefs on the first Thursday night of the regular season, then how would I be looking at that game as a WagerWire customer?
Yeah, so we actually do have activity all within the same game, which maybe would surprise some people. You might think of with this concept that it's only going to be for futures and longer dated stuff that lasts the whole season, but we have people selling picks during the game. So if you bet on the team before, at the pre-match line, they're up a couple touchdowns. Now you're in the money. You're getting a low ball cash out offer. You can actually, sell that bet at halftime and come and find us, and you can do that. So it's an interesting way to just kind of manage your positions, right? Also, some of the things that we're starting to see and some of the sharper bettors are getting excited about with our product is actually being able to capitalize on closing line value before the game even kicks off. If you are one of the sharp guys that right when the lines drop, Sunday night, you get the Niners at -2.5 and they get bet all the way up to -4. Traditionally you would hold that bet. You're looking good. You feel good that you got a better line than it closed at. But with our system, you're actually going to be able to sell that before the game even started for a profit. And, maybe you can get 20-25% on your money without even ever taking the bet into the game. So there's all sorts of new strategies that this can unlock for you. We're partnered with some DFS pick'em providers as well. So this works for fantasy, where you hit a couple legs of your pick'em and you want to sell out of it. Maybe you have a bad feeling that Kelsey's not going to get those extra couple receptions in the second half, and you could bail out of your ticket, halfway through the game. So it really just unlocks all that activity that you otherwise would have just been kind of static with your bet or your pick'em throughout the game.
Hey Zach, a follow up just before I go to Guy, and are you finding that is it appealing to both sharps and casual fans who bet? Sorry, casual bettors, I mean.
Yeah. No, we've actually been somewhat surprised because, again, you maybe from a 30,000 foot level really assume that this is for the sharpest guys who are really concerned about, capitalizing on that CLV or getting that extra couple of percent of value when you're exiting your bet versus a cash out. We do see that sharper guys are playing and are our power users, but this does have a lot of appeal to just like a rec plus player as well. We try to make it super easy for them. Guy could probably get into it too about some of the features we do to make it really streamlined and easy for players, like suggested prices. When you want to sell your bet or sell your pick'em, we can suggest a price using the same math that's behind the calculator that Travis just talked about. And then we put a deal score on everyone that's on the marketplace. So when you're browsing and you want to pick something to buy, it'll have an A+ deal on it or a B+ deal on it. That just makes it a lot easier and takes some of the math out of the equation for someone who's more of a rec player.
Hey Guy, I envision you kind of leading a team of somewhat mad scientists and on the tech piece, and I'd love to know just how your role and the work that your people are doing, how that's evolved since that first conversation we had 18 months ago.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would call myself the maddest of the scientists, so maybe it's like the right org structure, But yeah, I think what's great about our team that we built is we have, our engineering team and our data science team is all in-house. So these are people that work directly for WagerWire and only for WagerWire, and are fully committed to the cause that we are building. These aren't contractors. These aren't people, based offshores, right? And then the other thing that's so great about them is that a lot of them actually have sports betting and sports technology expertise. Some of them even worked at a company called Smarkets, which is like a European or English-based exchange. So, if you think about the overlap of people that are extremely tech savvy, overlap of people that, like the Venn diagram of people that are tech savvy, that understand sports very well, understand sports betting very well. The center of that Venn diagram is very small, and we have them, which is awesome. So these people understand fundamentally how this works and how to make this work well. So it's been very pleasant to work with them because I think we all understand the cause kind of deeply and thoroughly.
Yeah, you should know, Guy, if you didn't see it, both Zach and Travis were nodding their head when you referred to yourself as the maddest of the tech group. So just want for the record. Zach and Travis may want to chime in here too, just in terms of the growth of the business. I think when we spoke, and I think we actually spoke again, I think at the SBC Summit in Secaucus, maybe 6 or 7 months later in 2023, about your investors and clients. I mean, can you talk a little bit, Zach, about the kind of growth you've had in that piece? Have you brought more investors on board, and what your client list look like today?
Thanks. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think it was that long ago that we last really caught up. A lot has happened since then. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously very proud to have the backing we do with the Ehrenbergs, Roger Ehrenberg, and Ebert Capital with Ethan and Andrew as well. 305 Ventures, Joey Levy's fund out of Miami as well. And then we brought on a bunch of other additional exciting investors. I mean, Richard Jefferson, retired NBA player, invested in our seed round and is adding on again into our current round, bringing in a lot of people that were early backers of Simplebet and Better as well, because we do see a lot of parallels to the path that they blazed, really pioneering micro betting in the industry. So on that front, a lot of developments there. Partnership side of things too. We've been stacking a lot of partnerships since back then. Obviously, we have the Better Picks and Better Media partnership, where we're doing both media collaboration as well as plugging into their product. We have a couple announcements coming down the pipe. We've actually gotten live with a couple of our smaller partners as well for trading with STN Play and RT Sports. So really, just come from before we weren't even live with the product when we talked to you last, and now we've got product live, revenue generating, making a lot of progress, adding a lot of features and partners, and just got a lot of momentum right now, especially as we get into these other verticals too. Even beyond fantasy, we're now developed our product for horse racing. Just announced that recently, called PonyWire. We're also talking to contest and pools providers. If you're in a big Survivor contest or something like that, and you want to sell out of your entry towards the end of the season, just all these different pockets of opportunity. And we realized the technology we developed is very flexible and can be applied to really any of these types of gaming. So yeah, we're now in this kind of also horizontal expansion phase as well.
Hey, Travis, do you find, I think when we bumped into each other in Secaucus, I think the four of us still kind of felt like the strangers or the outsiders at the dance. And I assume it's probably much different today. And we're entering a busy fall conference season where, we have SBC and is going to be in Lisbon, and of course the Global Gaming Expo in October. And when you guys walk into these conference hours or walk into a meeting room, is the vibe a lot different because you are a known entity?
People are more receptive, but they fundamentally have not changed as business people, unfortunately, which is why you're seeing casino after casino kind of die by the wayside, because they thought there was safety in numbers and doing the exact same thing, trying to compete on marketing spend and on billboards and bus wraps. At a certain point, they're going to wake up and know that it's not working, and we're here for it, which is why we stood up our media vertical in the meantime, to not only make a lot of noise to get the casinos attention that, hey, your users right now want this, but also because we can monetize, right? We monetize as an affiliate. We monetize on ads. You brought up Better, right? That's a great example. They signed Hawk Tua, and spit on that bet. Okay, I'm clicking that before I'm clicking another freaking Jamie Foxx face. I'll tell you that much. No shade. Love Jamie. But how do we think about marketing in the age of new media? New media is something that invites you in. It doesn't just talk at you. It makes you part of the conversation. We mentioned, people posting their bet slips. Bleacher Report and Barstool and Action Network, this is a main vertical of theirs. It's just posting bets that are about to hit. It's a one-sided conversation. I can't click that bet. Maybe I could try to recreate it with some sort of push-through technology they have, but I'm not buying that bet. With us, you buy that bet or a fraction of your bet, or you can send it to your friend, right? And you're signing up for that sports book to buy it. So that's already interactive. And then when you think about it, you're now a part of this story, whether you started with the bet and you were just an everyman who now has $100 that could win 1.7, depending on what happens to the Thunder, which is what happened to Wayne Sheldon, made it onto Sports Center, right? Because we were selling his ticket. whether that person is the center of the story or whether it's, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift break up and now everyone's bailing on his, season-long prop bets.
Let's keep talking about that one. I do want to get to daily fantasy at some point, but the media content conversation is a fascinating one to me because of my roots and because I'm learning all the time. And I mentioned to you guys before we started the podcast about the Hawk Tua deal with Better that was announced as we record this on Wednesday, September 4th. I also saw an interesting post by Hilary McAfee from BC Ventures on LinkedIn earlier this week about the use of live casino videos and kind of the pluses of having an audience engaged for a longer period of time. And we've seen here in Ontario, and I'm sure other U.S. states as well, where we are seeing a pullback of sports betting advertising spends now, and sportsbook operators and everybody working in the space trying to find different ways to amplify their message or get their product out there. We had Michael Cryan, the head of paid social for Sport Radar, on the podcast recently talking about what Sport Radar is doing to support customers. Again, Travis, I'll start with you. Like, what is it that makes WagerWire unique and different in a very crowded marketplace where, I hear content, like if you looked up the definition of content in the gambling industry, there'd probably be 29 different examples of what content is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately, it's mostly just two white dudes filming their podcast. Not that we're any better here on this call, but
wait, we got four. Yeah.
We got four.
You got and one old white dude, so there's something to be said for that.
Hey man, listen, in Canada, you're a legend. Everyone knows it. So what I think is different about the modern era that people are just catching up to is you're not selling a product. You're not selling cereal or, whatever. You're selling an experience, right? And that's why very early on, we're the three co-founders, right? Rather than CMO, which is what technically I am, CXO, Chief Experience Officer. People don't like being marketed at, but they want to be invited into something. So when you think of your product like an experience, and you brought up Hilary McAfee, like, even just watching somebody gamble, you feel like you're participating in it, right? We need to stop it. It feels like you on the phone with the bookie still is how an app feels, right? What's that experience like? You lose in private, you maybe even win in private, or you try to get your 15 minutes of fame because there's a UCLA study that you get that Gen Z at least gets just as much dopamine for increased likes on their Instagram posts as they do increased money in their bank account. So thinking about what the social cachet is, but people want to be part of something bigger. And I don't necessarily know that any app outside of potentially Prize Picks, and I think Better is a good example as a lifestyle brand. You actually feel like you're winning Jake Paul's money. There's like a little bit of like, maybe I could drive a Lambo there. But what makes Caesars different from MGM? I think the color scheme.
Hey, Zach, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly there. It's like, so we're definitely trying to pioneer really like a totally different approach to the media side. I mean, we were social media driven first. Originally, before we even had a product, we knew we were very intentional that we wanted to start building a presence and building a community. Was part of a hot start strategy. Shout out to Andrew Chen and Cold Start Problem. Andrew Chen from A16Z has just a fantastic book about getting marketplace businesses started from 0 to 1. It's very different than a normal business because you need supply and demand, and you have to walk them up in lockstep. And so we knew we couldn't just turn the product on and have 0 followers, 0 users, and expect it to work. So we started out building it ourselves, organically on social media. Now it's really evolved a lot. And I think Travis could definitely get into it more too, is we've now, formally stood up the Wire Media Group, as a vertical of the company. And it's now evolved into really this whole content collective with a bunch of different partner networks and creators. I mean, I'd hand it to Trav if you want to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think what we're realizing is there's a ton of changeover in media. And so a lot of people that were on networks are now making their own brand, maybe their own network with their creators or whatever, but they didn't necessarily sign up to run a StreamYard, book their talent, get advertising. And they definitely didn't sign up to clip their stuff and make it viral after they've just worked really hard and filmed a whole day of whatever. So what we said is, well, we could create our own net new sports media, but there's a lot of really great stuff with really great voices that's going out every day. And it all has the same problem. As soon as the tip off happens, the puck drop happens, your opinion turns into a pumpkin and very few people go back for it. Right. So how do you get the most out of daily sports betting content? You need AI. So if you have a long form show, our partners give us an hour show, half-hour show, 2-hour show. We'll take it. We search for what's trending, and with the show notes and the transcription, we'll find the pieces with the most impact. That'll automatically get kicked out. It'll get an article written in the show's voice. We're also training show-specific models, so it really sounds like Bill Krakenberger, or it really sounds like Sam Factor at Walter Picks or whatever. It'll write the post, write the article, and you can even generate an image to go with the article that pulls on our database of team logos and headshots, and put a little stylization on it, right? And so within 2 hours, then we can kick back something to go right back into the feeds, because what you're trying to do is get inside that scroll. Not a lot of people are just going to like type in your name. Maybe they will, but they're going to find you by seeing you 1, 2, 3, 4. We think it's 7 times that someone sees you before they follow you over a series of days. So how do you create that kind of repetition and visibility? They contribute the content. It's a content collective. They contribute the content. We contribute the production services, and we put it out co-branded. And we also have new real estate to split ad revenue on top of.
Hey, Guy, I want to get you in here. What's the role that the technology plays in all of this?
Efficiency, right? Like a lot of the way the content works is it's just a lot of man hours, a lot of like parsing through long podcasts and putting it out in an efficient way is like so essential to the process. And in the end, all of this stuff does kind of feed the general thesis of WagerWire, which is that the betting community is better together as a whole, with like as many people as possible talking about things, selling bets to each other, building a community, not an antagonistic thing. It can be competitive, but not necessarily antagonistic. So if the technology can make the community building faster and more fun, that's a good usage for it, as well as just, building cool widgets and apps and whatnot.
Hey, Travis, you guys have put together a real nice mix. There's short form videos, there's your live shows, at least 2 podcasts that I saw on your website and prepping for the podcast today. You guys have also dug into written content, but Brad Evans, who kind of made his name as a fantasy guy, Yahoo Sports, does some writing for WagerWire. I guess 2 questions. One, why, I think we've seen sometimes there's kind of a move away from written content, and people want video, or they want podcasts now. And the other question escapes me. So I'll let you answer the first question first while my old memory wakes me up.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's basically different types of engagement. There's like passive engagement, and then, various levels of and reading obviously is going to take more, is going to require more of the viewers. But if you can give them something, you actually have net more of their engagement. You're also not coming in between things. I mean, it's insane what you could see a piece of sports betting content in between. A freaking like tragedy on the other side of the world, and then someone twerking, and then in the middle is somebody's picks, right? With an article, you're actually locked into the topic, and you're maybe absorbing the stuff more. However, people are probably going to skim it, so you have to make it readable on 2 levels. The top line, the meat of it, and then you actually still want to be linking back out to the videos, because that's people. We're actually like almost like a flywheel. We don't even necessarily care if you stay on our site very long. We want to route you to our partners, and then we know that you're going to come back to us.
Yeah, I know the question, and I don't know, Travis, you or Zach can answer this, but we talk about at Parlay Media Group, and again, our core business is serving sportsbook operators and creating content, and we have this discussion often about building audience and building engagement. I guess, Zach, I'll start with you. Like, what is the metric that matters most to you guys when it comes to content?
Yeah, I mean, obviously through this collective, we are trying to maximize our reach, and one of the theses of it is that we're cross-pollinating audiences. So, one creator, Brad Evans, might have a very loyal 5 or 10,000 people that come and read his stuff every day, and Matt Berry's Betting Life, part of Fantasy Life, has like their group of loyal users. How do we actually expose these to different groups and actually kind of combine our reach? That's one thing that we focus a lot on. Then one number we're very proud of is that our engagement on social media is 50 to 100% higher than industry averages. So, we're putting this stuff out, and it actually is getting engagement, comments, likes, retweets, click-throughs to the article behind it. So that's probably one of the metrics that we're like most proud about as far as the KPIs go.
And don't take our word for it. If anyone listening wants to, go to @WagerWire on Twitter, and then go to @DraftKings on Twitter. They have 10 times the amount of followers, pretty much equal engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thanks for that, Travis.
Hey, sorry, just to chime in here. I think it's because what WagerWire is this conversational, this marketplace, this social community. It just caters to engagement, right? So like if somebody's saying, look at this 10-leg parlay I've got that I've hit 7 of these legs, 3 of them remaining. This is the cash out offer that whoever sportsbook is giving me. What do you think? What should I do? Like that's just so much fodder for conversation. And it's fun fodder. It's not just like, don't take the cash out, do take the cash out. It's like, I'll give you 50K for it. I'll give you 60K for it. So just because of like the core subject matter that we're generally talking about is so engaging, it obviously drives engagement.
Go ahead. Sorry, Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing to add there too that I think Trav brought up briefly is I think one thing that's really powerful about our media too is that it's objective, because we're not profiting off of people's losses the same way the sportsbooks are. So there's this inherent conflict of interest in all sports betting media when it's brought to you by DraftKings sponsor or FanDuel TV or like whatever you're watching. Like you're getting these picks for the afternoon's games from a company who entire business model is that you're going to lose your bets in aggregate. So there's this like, are you really going to trust this content? And I know the creators are in a tricky spot because the sports books are the most natural sponsors to all this stuff. So like, and they got to make a living. I get it. I don't think it's the creators' problem. I think it's just this inherent issue with the industry. And then we're in a unique spot where we would love you to win your bets. And we definitely don't profit if you lose. So at least we can be objective. You can trust that what we're telling you is what we honestly believe. It may not pan out to be true, but we're definitely not playing any games where we're like trying to get you to do this same game parlay this afternoon that's like, minus 30% EV. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it too, that we can be this like objective third-party source of information.
It kind of, listening to Guy speak, it kind of reminds me of being on a community group on Facebook or Reddit where he asked, I'm just new to town, and where can I get a good meal, or where can I find a reliable mechanic? And again, it's just people chipping in, and it's to do something good and help people out, and it's kind of it's fun, and it makes people feel good, and that's what I'm thinking when I'm listening to both you and Guy speak, Zach.
Mm-hmm. And one of the mediums we use is Twitter Spaces. We do a lot of Twitter Spaces shows, and it has that very community-based feel where it's almost got like an old AM sports radio feel to it, where people can raise their hand, they can ask a question, they can put their question into the chat box, we'll actually address it. So it does invite people in, to Travis's point, to the experience rather than just, press and play on the podcast, which we do some of that too. But we love the Twitter Spaces for that element of it.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out too. I mean, so much is made of the toxicity around social media platform these days, and in a lot of cases, rightly so. But there's still some great spots for social media, and they provide a good service in so many ways. So we shouldn't lose sight of that. Hey guys, just quick, a couple more questions. I do want to get into the daily fantasy. I think the latest news release you guys put out is around FantasyWire partnering with WagerWire under the Wire Technologies umbrella, and FantasyWire is now powering the first ever daily fantasy sports pick and marketplace on real-time fantasy sports, Zach, which I think you referenced earlier. And trading is also available on the WagerWire app. Maybe Zach, can you just talk about you guys getting into fantasy sports, how and why that started, and how much of an opportunity does the company see with daily fantasy?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've always seen fantasy as a good pocket of opportunity, and we've just been leaning more and more into it in the past, I think, 6 to 12 months. So with the pick'em provider, you have this ticket that has 3 or 4 legs of player props on it, and you hit a leg or two, and There's no concept of cash out in the entire fantasy landscape. They're also very tricky to hedge. Like if you did one of these 1000x multiplier 10 leg pick'ems and you're down to the last leg, but you're in a state that doesn't have sports betting, like how are you going to hedge out that last leg? It's basically impossible. So this really creates that solution to risk manage your pick'em entries. And then we actually have even been now developing it, and we're in the process of integrating to do DFS 1.0 contests as well. So if you're in, a best ball tournament on a Sunday or even a season-long fantasy league, those are all in a similar situation where you're locked into your action and you have no way to tap into any equity you have if you're in first place heading into the Sunday night football game. But there's a couple of guys behind you that are close on your heels. You might want to sell off 20% of your entry and lock in a profit and turn the $100 entry into a profit at least, and then roll the dice from there. So we've been expanding into that a lot. And then as part of that, we stood up WagerWire as this independent brand. We did think that it is a different product, different experience, and we figured it made sense to have unique branding and kind of independent treatment for us. Also, you've obviously got just in the US at least, the kind of battle between fantasy and sports betting. And, anything we can do to play our part where we don't have the word WagerWire stamped on pick'em tickets, is something that we can do to at least put our best foot forward for the fantasy industry too.
And Travis, I think for the experienced guy, I mean, having a daily fantasy business is like it's a batting practice fastball, I would think.
Well, yeah. What's so interesting? People were like, "How long would it take?" Just from the marketplace point of view, first, how long would it take for a ticket to actually sell? Like, what's the uptime and downtime from when you post it to when someone comes along? Well, it's daily fantasy, so you have one day, and these things are clearing 5-10% of all the daily fantasy pick'ems on our partner RT are clearing the market. So they're actually the sale is actually being finalized, which is amazing. Of course, you have the daily content cycle. So what we talked about with the AI optimizes us for that super fast pace. Like you were saying, like fast pitch is exactly right. I mean, a future is the entire, MLB season, 160 whatever games. But yeah, just hitting fastballs for friggin' 12, 13, 14 hours straight. But that's why flipping it is so fun too, because it doesn't take long to hit 1, 2, 3 legs, and then you're in the money. Cash it, goes into your balance, put it back down on a new pick. Yeah.
Hey, Guy, talked about the company kind of now having all these, fingers in different pies. I mean, what kind of stress or I guess challenges and also opportunities is that created for you?
I have not found any extra stress by this. Like, I think the cool thing about what we've built is that whether you're selling a fantasy entry or you're selling a March Madness bracket or you're selling a sports bet, our system is flexible and designed in a way to accommodate all of that. Like, that was something that we realized at a very early stage. Like, we named this business Wire Industries, because we knew that digital selling of gaming assets is where this thing needs to go. So like from day one, we knew that this was something we needed to be flexible about. So that's been great. And our engineers have just executed on that thoroughly. I think where maybe the mad scientist craziness comes in is how do you start pricing these things? So like if you had a bet on, the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl and they were 15-1 and now they're 3-1, putting a price on that isn't the most complicated math. And that's what, our calculator does on the website. It gets more complicated with parlays and whatnot. But now when we're talking about the DFS world and you have a 3-leg pick'em, a 3-player pick'em, Travis Kelce hit his, I don't know how to keep using Chiefs metaphors. I'm a 49er fan, but so like, let's say, Travis Kelce hit his 5 receptions, and then now you have Lamar Jackson in the Monday night game. And then it's the second quarter and there's 4 minutes to go. And Patrick Mahomes has 180 of the 265.5 yards he needs. Like, how do you put a price on that? It's so dynamic and it's coming purely from the box score game clock level. So the fact that our data science team got posed that problem and we've just built a solution that does this in real time, the prices in real time, Like that's the kind of stuff that was like really challenging, but was like extremely rewarding, because I can say, with confidence that we're the only people out there putting live pricing models on, fantasy sports. And that's been super exciting.
I just got to say, Travis, I think, guys being way too modest here. And it reminds me of my newspaper days where, you get the columnist who gets his byline in the paper the next day, and he shows up at the press box for games and gets to eat the free food and watch a game and hang around athletes. And meanwhile, there's a copy editor back at the office who finds the spelling mistakes and the misspelled names of athletes, and make sure that there's no typos when the column comes out the next morning. I think you can, give you a chance to give guys some props here.
Well, this is what's beautiful about the company, right? And then not only that, we're like three best friends in the whole world, but we have, very complementary skill sets. I can't do what Guy does. I can't do what Zach does. I would like to think I'm maybe equally irreplaceable, but we all have our natural delineations of work, which is great, right? And there's the only overlap that comes is that kind of beautiful like synergy. Like if we're gonna, I can give a million examples. That's the power of like a 3-person founding team. Also the tie-breaking vote, and we do everything unanimously, and it's always an odd number. So I mean, yeah.
Hey Zach, last question for you. And we met in New York back in 2023. We talked a little bit about Ontario. I think you guys had been given a vendor's license by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario back then. Can you just bring our listeners up to speed on what you are doing in Ontario? And I'm sure the three of you have been following what's going on with Alberta and the expectation that there will probably be a regulated market here sometime early in 2025.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're really excited for the Canada opportunity. We're live up there. I mean, our app works in Canada. You might have some limited functionality depending on where exactly you are. Real-time fantasy sports, you can trade those pick'ems outside of Ontario. I think provinces excluding Ontario, basically. And then we do affiliate services with a lot of our sportsbook partners up there. And what we're excited about now, though, is we've had some very productive conversations with some of the Canadian sportsbooks recently. And they're all looking for ways to differentiate, ways to grow audience, grow loyalty and community, and basically all the things that WagerWire, can do for them. And there's even some unique elements of Canada where, there's really strict rules around advertising in Canada for operators, right? And inducements and things like that. But what's better than an advertisement anyway, and doesn't qualify as an advertisement, is these great viral organic stories about big tickets up for sale. So when we have a Wayne Shelton where the ticket gets all the way up to being talked about on SportsCenter, like that's a fantastic organic marketing opportunity that doesn't come across as an advertisement, and it doesn't, run you the risk of any of those, inducement policies and things like that. So we're in an interesting spot where we can really drive some of this viral attention for operators up there and solve a big problem of theirs, basically.
Mm-hmm. I just want to double tap on that, giving guys flowers though, Steve, because I think like what can't be said enough is that this is something that doesn't exist. These guys are designing and building something that for whatever reason does not exist, not here, not in Canada, not anywhere in the world. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What are the good lessons we can take from products we like? What are lessons that we want to avoid? How can we actually think ground up from, what this thing is, a net new novel idea that's going to exist in our partner's app. It's going to exist in our apps. And we're basically designing the product that we want to use, which is our origin story anyway. I wanted to buy Zach's bet. We've settled up, on the text. I don't know if you have Venmo in Canada or not. Yeah. They don't have it in England, so it doesn't always land when you say Venmo. Okay. But yeah, and then Guy's team actually built the technology around it, and we built it compliantly. We had more lawyers than employees till earlier this year, and it's exciting. And I think that you can start to feel, to your very earlier question, there is a net excitement around this because it feels inevitable. But there's a war of attrition on, and we're coming on your show, Steve, to throw our hat in the ring and say we're ready when they are.
We're going to need a pin to poke a hole in Guy's ego now. But hey, Zach, just quickly, sorry, I lied. One last question. You mentioned horse racing earlier, and I just wonder, is there a global opportunity for WagerWire moving forward if you're not doing it now? Again, and I talk often with people about we're seeing a real explosion in popularity around cricket, not just in Canada and the U.S. And rugby is a sport that's usually been, something we don't talk about in North America, but that's changing. As international, something the three of you guys talk about?
Yeah, it is actually. We went out to Ice London for the first time this back in January, and then Travis was actually speaking at IGB Amsterdam in July, and now we're heading out to SBC Lisbon at the end of September.
Next
so
we too, right?
And we did next in Malta. So this was the first year that we started doing the international tour a little bit, and we've had really good reception out there too. We didn't quite know what to expect out there, frankly. It was kind of funny because when sports betting first got legalized in the States, all the sports books brought in these consultants from Europe, and there'd be like the British guy on the call. There'd always be one British guy on the call. And he was always the most resistant to this idea. He would always be the one trying to shut it down, like, oh, this doesn't exist in London. Like, nothing's going to work here the same way it does there. So it's like, Trav came up with the line like, well, if we did everything the same way as England, we'd still have a king. But then now I think, a couple years later too, and they're definitely seeing the light. I mean, you have exchanges out there like Betfair and SmartGets and those kind of things, but those are primary exchanges. You're creating a net new bet, and you're really trading against algorithms and Susquehanna and people like this. So when you're on our site, it's a little bit more like a StubHubby or a StockX feel to it. It's definitely got a lower barrier to entry than like a proper exchange does, as far as just learning how it works. And yeah, we've had really good reception out there too. So now we're talking to platform providers and sports books all around the world, actually, Europe, LATAM, Australia. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and we were shocked to find out that this concept doesn't really exist anywhere. So we see this as like a world domination tour. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing that. Zach Doctor, Travis Geiger, and Guy Dotan are the co-founders of WagerWire, the senior executive leadership team. Hey guys, I've met a lot of really terrific people in this industry over the last 3.5 years, but you guys are at the top of the list. Always enjoy talking to you. Wish you a very successful fall. Let's please stay in touch, and maybe we'll get you back on the podcast right before the Super Bowl, and we can have a little bit of fun before the big game in February.
Steve, I got to give you credit for something, because I wrote this down during the podcast. At like the 28-minute mark, you said the sentence, WagerWire is great and it makes you feel good. And that's pretty fantastic. I think we'll throw that on all over our website. I couldn't agree with it more.
Well, just make sure I get royalties on T-shirt sales, Guy, when you do that, all right?
There we go.
We're going to do the Hot Tour shirts. We can do the Gaming Canada crossover. Yeah.
Great, again. Thanks so much again, guys. That's it for this episode of the Gaming News Canada show. As always, you can find this podcast at gamingnewscanada.ca and on the various podcast platforms. Again, I know you'll enjoy this conversation with Guy, Zach, and Travis as much as I have, and we'll see everybody again very soon.
Thank you for listening to the Gaming News Canada show. Sign up for our newsletter at gamingnewscanada.ca. Follow Steve McAllister on LinkedIn. Message Steve if you're interested in being a sponsor or featured guest.